Welcome to Tartan Touchdown episodes, where we take you through all of the latest stories, the talking points from this week in the NFL. Well, we've got our first team removed from playoff contention, folks, and we have plenty more teams who are staring down the barrel. Plus, we do have one or two with some causes for pre-Thanksgiving. Pre-Thanksgiving? Have I made that up? Have I made up a holiday? I think I made up a holiday. But I'm having it because we've got big winners and losers, and we're going to go through all of week 12 and break it down for you. Now, 'tis the season of discontent, and Gav, it is your season of discontent, because not only do your Giants have the ignominy of being the first team eliminated from playoff contention, you've also sacked another member of the coaching team. It's not a great week to be a Giants fan, Gav, is it?
It's not, but I think this is the first time we get ignominy in the podcast this season.
Twice.
That's something. Yeah, we've got to celebrate the wins. Also, seeing as we're making up Holly's Happy Thanksgiving Eve.
I think multi-Eve.
Yeah, it's been a tough time for Giants fans, that's for sure. I think that was the 5th double-digit lead we've blown.
Yep.
So that was a painful one. I think we'll definitely be covering that off during the course of the pod, because I am a masochist.
Well, do you know, for the sake of anybody that maybe isn't on board with what the Giants have managed to achieve this year, and I say achieve, and I mean it in the nastiest of ways, is that we do need to remember that the Giants have been leading 37-34 with 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. They have been leading 14-3 at the half. They've been leading 26-8 with 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. They have been leading 20-10 with 4 minutes, call it, in the fourth quarter. And they have been leading 27-17 with 10 minutes in the fourth quarter. And what do all of those statistics, those score lines have in common? Every single one the Giants have managed to lose from. It really is a bit of a talent being able, you hear the snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and it really is a bit of a thing for the Giants this year. What is going on in New York, Gav? Explain this for me.
Well, I did see a comment earlier today where someone said we are the best 2-10 team in the NFL. The problem with that is that you're still 2-10.
Yeah.
And there are good reasons for that. I think what's interesting, I guess, about the move to get rid of the defensive coordinator today is perhaps should that have come sooner? Would that have bought Brian Daboll even just a little bit more time if he'd got rid of the coordinator first? Hindsight's a wonderful thing, so I guess we'll never know. But I think it is fair to say that whilst there are still issues to be resolved on the offense, I think the Giants' defense has really let the side down at points, particularly in the secondary, because we've talked before about the strength of that defensive front. You've got Brian Burns, Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, you've got Abdul Carter in there. He's maybe still got a bit to prove as a rookie, but still a very promising talent. So, the line has been getting pressure, but turnovers have been hard to come by. Closing games out in particular has been hard to come by. And as I say, I do think I do have a little bit of a question mark around the play calling offensively when we're trying to close out leads, but at the same time, we did put up 500 yards on the road against the Lions with that 10-point lead and still couldn't close it out. So we know big changes are coming in New York, as if we haven't had them already. But I think something did need to be done in the case of the defense. So yeah, we move on. We'll see what comes next. It can only all go horribly wrong.
Well, yeah, to be fair. We will mention the Browns in passing a little bit later on, because they're not coming in the sad section of the show.
Not this week.
Not this week. But it's interesting, though, because at the end of the day, you took the Detroit Lions to overtime. I mean, that cannot be understated. You look at the offensive display that we got from the Giants, and it was a good display. You've got Wan'Dale Robinson dropping 100 and who knew? Who knew the Jameis Winston to Wandale Robinson connection was going to be a headline come Monday morning?
And let's not forget that Jameis is a receiver in his own
This
right.
is true. This is true. Jameis in the slot. Jameis runs routes, but it is, and it's, I suppose, yeah, it's, as you say, the secondary is badly lacking. You get a bit of credit for your D line, but it's worth mentioning as well. Even with that D line, you did let Jimmy Gibbs put 219 yards up on the ground, busting holes straight through that, and there was some of them. Oh, I can't think which one. There was a third down run that Gibbs had where he just shuffled his way through the line, and when you seen it live, you thought, "Oh my god, this is amazing! Look at those hips! Look at him move! He can get through people. He's juking. He's diving." Then you seen it, and you got like the quarterback angle. And you're like, "No, no, 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 he's not. There's just no one there. Just no one decided that Jahmyr Gibbs was worth tackling, and he's just ripped it for a bit. It was a 30 or 40 yard gain. I don't know. As I say, I've asked you this before because it's a thing with New York that it's worth adding at this point because they are a wee bit of a whipping boy of the league. You're 2-10. You're the first team out of playoff contention. Well done, Lions fans. By the way, you've went to 7-4. You're keeping the good times rolling. But with the Giants, you are 2-10 and all the rest of it. Your season is done. You have got Jackson Dart, who is not playing because he's in concussion protocol. You have got Cam Scatterable, who looked incredible and is now out for the remainder of the year. You've got, dare we forget, Malik Neighbours, who has been not played since, what week was that, like week 3, week 4, something like that, when Neighbours got hurt?
Really early on.
Yeah. So you have got an offense that is doing decent, and I don't think that's unfair, without its quarterback, leading wide receiver, and leading running back. Surely there has to be that party that looks at it and goes, right, when you lose that many players, when the coaching and the play calling aren't great, the year is kind of done. But surely still, there has to be that is there that kernel, that tiny, tiny bit of optimism in your heart?
I think there's always going to be a tiny, tiny bit of optimism, and I think I'm sure if you speak to me in August, September next year, I will absolutely buzzing again. I guess what we do need to reflect on though is that those injuries have kind of piled up as the season's gone on. But Dart obviously went down last week. Cam Scatterbo again was only fairly recent. I mean, Malik Neighbours, yeah, it's always going to be a stinger to lose your number one wide receiver fairly early on in the season. But most teams at some point will have to deal with an injury or two. And I think that yeah, the injuries are starting to compound much like a record. I, I think that the warning signs have always been there. So I think you're absolutely right to say, yeah, plenty of reason to be optimistic. Certainly, we are looking like we're going to be picking pretty high up the draft. There is going to be quite a lot of quarterback hungry teams this off season. So potentially, there is something that you or the Giants could do with those picks or that high first round pick and allow them to reload at multiple positions. We'll just need to wait and see how that develops. But yeah, I think come the summertime, I will probably be optimistic, but it's quite painful at the moment.
Well, to going or from going from a team that okay to be fair, you weren't coming into the year saying that you were going to be winning much anyway. So a little bit of the Browns in that regard, but going to a team that did think they were coming into the year to contest it all and will still have those hopes even despite a really tough loss. Looking at Buffalo Bills going down 23-19 against the Texans. Now, we've been talking about this one a little bit. And for me, this boils down to, are we really seeing the Bills struggling? Or are we seeing, frankly, a Texans defense that is just elite?
I think there probably is a bit of both here. I think the Houston Texans are a team that's actually been tiptoeing up the way as the season's gone on. So I mean, I think that's them now finally got a winning record,
6-5.
But perhaps I don't know if it's just because the Colts have just really come out of nowhere this season and have had a relatively comfortable lead in the FC South. We've probably not noticed the fact that the Texans have actually been starting to claw it back a little bit, especially when you think that the Texans actually started the season 0-3. So yeah, I think it's one that sometimes it takes a bit of time for us to come alive to the fact that a team is really starting to build momentum. But yeah, Houston's starting to stack the wins. They've won 4 out of their last 5. In fact, if you look at some of the teams that have beaten in there, you've got the 49ers, who, again, despite their own injury issues, doing really well. They ran the Broncos really hard at home as well. I think that was a bit of a late comeback for Denver down in Houston. They absolutely smashed the Ravens. Admittedly, that I think was one of the weeks that Lamar was out. But they have taken some big scalps throughout the season. And of course, we can add Buffalo into that list. I think from the Bills' perspective, though, where we're starting to worry here is I think if you look at this one game in a vacuum, you would maybe say, yeah, okay, that's one that you can start to see why they would have dropped that, even as a contender. You're on the road. It's a matchup that's not been great for the Bills either. I think JP Losman, if you remember him, was the Bills quarterback the last time they actually defeated the Texans. But if you're looking at the Bills results, it's just been really wobbly. I mean, the teams that, in amongst the teams that have lost it, they get handily beaten by the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago. They had a 10-point loss back in October to the Atlanta Falcons, who we used to say, what Falcons team are we getting this week? The Falcons are just bad.
The Falcons are just the Falcons.
There's not a Falcons and a bad Falcons. The Falcons are just bad. So, yeah, the Buffalo Bills are actually probably that team that we've been treating the Falcons as early in the season. They have had some fantastic wins. They've also had some really bad losses now. It's 7-4. I mean, I'll still admit they were my pick to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC. Now they find themselves, I believe, 2.5 games behind the Patriots, but the Patriots currently hold the tiebreaker as well, with the rematch to come in New England in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, they're still in the playoffs, but I think we can say that the division is going to be a real uphill battle, particularly with the Patriots' schedule. And then couple that in with the fact that you've also got the old rivals, the Chiefs, pursuing them to get one of those wildcard spots. Yeah, the Bills can absolutely still make it to the postseason. There's a number of winnable games on the slate, but there's no guarantees anymore. And given some of the losses that they've had, they're really going to have to get things moving. Otherwise, they could be looking at an early exit.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So for anybody that's curious, actually, because it was a great point with the JP Losman win, the last time Buffalo got a win in Texas was 2006. It's not yesterday. That they've been really, it's not been a happy hunting ground for them. The playoff picture for them is something that is particularly interesting. I'm going to go a step further than you, Gav. The AFC East is done. Stick a fork in it. That is over. It is the Pats. A combination, I mean, sitting at 10-2 right now. Then when you look at the schedule for the rest of the year, yeah, you can make all the excuses that you want. Oh, it's easy. It's a 4th place schedule. You can only beat the teams that are set out in front of you. And the Pats have been doing it handily all year. And there's no reason to think that they're not going to continue to win most of the games that remain to them this season. So that is done. So you are looking at a wild card selection for the Bills. And right, the AFC North, you ain't getting 2 teams in the North in the playoffs this year. The Ravens will take the North, and the Steelers will, meh. They'll fall away a wee bit, and that'll be it for the North. Then in the AFC South, you've got the Texans, you've got the Jags. Bills are sat 7-4, the Jags are 7-4, and the Texans are 6-5. You would say you reckon the Texans will pick up another few wins. Jags, you were mentioning, which team are we going to get this week? The Jags fit that bucket. I've no idea who's turning out in Jacksonville. Then you look at that AFC West. Broncos, 9-2. Chargers, 7-4. Kansas City, 6 and 5. And we'll talk more about these teams as we move through the show. But I have no idea who's going to win that division. There's no real way to say at the minute any of those three teams could win it. And you would put smart money down saying that whoever does win it is going to be run close by at least one of the other two, if not all three. So you could easily see multiple teams out of the AFC West conspiring to keep the Bills out of the playoff picture this year. And who thought we were going to be having that conversation at this point? Something's worth adding in as well from Sunday. You know, as I say, for me, I think what we actually seen was incredible defense from the Texans. I think they've got one of the best units in the game. Spoken much and will speak more about how incredible Myles Garrett is being the sack leader of the league. We've talked about Burns being the second highest sack total in the league so far. You then have two Houston players. You've got Danielle Hunter and I was about to say it's Will Anderson Jr. and then I think I'm wrong. I'll double check in a minute. But you've got two Texans coming in third and fourth for your sack leaders in the year. It is an incredible defensive line. They sacked Josh Allen 8 times for 70 yards of lost yardage. It's incredible. And when you're giving that up, how do you come back for that? Just what do you do?
Well, I think the other thing that's really interesting is I think everyone's rightly been talking about the Texans' defensive line, but actually, I guess one of the reasons that this loss, despite the Texans' D, the reason the fact it's still been a shocking one is because they have a backup quarterback in there.
Mm-hmm.
But whilst Josh Allen took 8 sacks, Davis Mills was not sacked once. Yeah, clean shirts. And I think the Texans have been doing what they have to give their backup quarterback a chance to go and win games. It wasn't easy for him at times, but at the end of the day, he didn't make negative plays. He didn't take any sacks. He didn't turn the ball over. And, you know, if that's what you can do, you can just keep moving the chains, keep the scoreboard ticking over, then you're going to give yourself a chance to win.
Yeah, and it's one, you know, it's funny because it's I've genuinely, for everybody listening, I have literally just noticed this stat. When you look at the stats that came out of that game, you have got one team with 143 yards passing, 253 yards on the ground. You've got one fumble, and then you've got another team with a paltry 108 yards through the air and 153 yards 108 yards on the ground and 153 yards through the air. And that's the team that wins it because they played clean football. They had no fumbles, like you say, Gav. No interceptions. Josh Allen, my fantasy beloved, he stung me this week. He's like 3 points. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. They didn't give up a fumble, they lost a fumble. It's just, I don't know, bad day at the office, something they're going to recover for the Bills. I was full of faith in the Bills going into last week that they were going to, turn up angry, and they did, and they won. Is it something going ahead? They're going to be able to do it? I don't know. They seem to be, really struggling with consistency this year in Buffalo, and that's not something that we're really used to seeing. Not in the regular season. The season's different. Yeah, it's a tough one to take.
Seeing the postseason for Bills, it's just not a good kind.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so moving on to another one for just a season of discontent. One of the games of the week, maybe not in terms of scoreline, maybe not in terms of big splash plays or anything, but in terms of the story, the Indianapolis Colts taking on everyone's favourite Kansas City Chiefs. And you talk about a game that was, as I say, maybe not, the biggest scoreline. Chiefs winning it 23-20. Drama. Cinema. Overtime win. Walk-off field goal to tie it up. But one of my questions here with this one, are we seeing another example of, do you know what? You want to beat Indianapolis? Take away Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor finished the game with 16 carries for 58 yards. Along a 27. It's becoming a running joke that Jonathan Taylor doesn't score touchdowns, he scores hat-tricks. The Chiefs took him away for the most part. They were the Chiefs through the air. We watched Patrick Mahomes throw it for 352 yards. I watched the first half of this game and I thought, do you know what? And they have it. KC, they're done. It's just not going to be their year. But then you've seen that second half performance. And if we're taking pot shots at the Bills for their regular season form matching their playoff form, are we seeing KC turn the screw and decide, you know what? We need to play like it matters?
I didn't realise we had Tony Romo on the pod.
Was it? Well, I deliberately avoided it. I deliberately avoided Tony Romo's comments.
Yeah, it's funny because I've said a few times that I certainly thought that Colts will be on double-digit wins come December. I think actually now with this result they won't be. But this was the one game that you kind of circled ahead of time, said, do you know what? If they drop a game at Arrowhead, fair enough. That's one where you think they might struggle. And I think it's not the fact that they lost the game. It's the fact that they had it in the palm of their hand, and I know all too well about double-digit leads late in games and throwing them away. It's the fact that they had this well in hand, 20-9 they were leading. No touchdowns for Kansas City up to that point. In fact, they only finished the game with one trip to the end zone. And it just got away from them. And when you look at the statistics, it's not hard to see why. Jonathan Taylor was limited to, I think, 83 yards for the whole game. That includes one big play in there. But down the stretch, as we saw, particularly in that loss to the Steelers, the Colts had Daniel Jones when everything had to go through him. When it all got a bit iffy, and I think his stats in the fourth quarter and overtime was 3 of 9 for 17 yards, which that's the thing when you lose your run game, you're going to need to be able to move the ball through the air. And I suppose credit where it's due, it's a Steve Spagnuolo defense. They are going to find a way to stop you, and they absolutely did that. But I guess the worry now for Indianapolis, as you've said, is that we're starting to see this recipe emerging. Take Jonathan Taylor away, put it on Daniel Jones, and okay, it's easier said than done, but if you've got the personnel, if you've got the defensive coordinator that can make life difficult, you can see how the wheels might start to come off for the Colts.
It is the kind of thing, I suppose, where we look at it in quarterback, most important position in sport. I say that and I genuinely believe it. I don't think you can find a position in a team sport anywhere else that's as important as a quarterback is. And at the end of the day, Daniel Jones, I think we can safely say throughout this year, Daniel Jones has shown that he can be a competent NFL starting quarterback. I think that's fair. He is a guy that he won't lose you a game. If he's well coached, if he's got the right plays coming around about him, if he's got some reasonable personnel, which is that, when you look at the receiving core in India, I think that's what you would call it. It's not an incredible receiving room, it's reasonable. Daniel Jones is fine. He is not the guy that's going to put your team on his back and get you the win on his own. Certainly not regularly. Certainly not under duress like he was again. Well, I say he was under duress. He was under a lot of pressure. He escaped clean. He didn't get sacked at all. But Chris Jones certainly had more than a few fantastic pressures on him where he might not have got all the way home for the sack, but he certainly made Daniel Jones know that he was there. He made him rush passes. He made him fire it out early. That's the kind of stuff that you can't do against a team like Kansas City. Because at the end of the day, we're going to talk about this actually because it leads us into our next team actually as well. There is a bit about mental toughness that's so important in the NFL. And at the end of the day, we all joked about it last year with Kansas City, that there was so many games that they seemed to just fluke their way through. They led the league in victories in one-scored games. That's irritating. But there is a part where to do that consistently, it shows a kind of a resolve, a resilience that is why we have seen the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs year after year after year. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is incredible. We know this. So is Joe Burrow. So is Justin Herbert. So is a whole host of other quarterbacks around the league that aren't in the playoffs every single year. Because at the end of the day, there are other huge deficiencies in their teams that you need more than one guy to do it. Moving on to teams that were a bit of a meme last year, another team that was a bit of a meme last year, and for good reasons, but they are, I don't know, I don't want to say falling apart. I don't think that's fair. I think that's a bit harsh. But how in the name of hell did the Eagles lose? What happened? What happened? I watched this game and I was having so much fun just terrorising Dan that the entire first quarter was just glorious. It's just me messaging Dan constantly, just taking the absolute mix straight out of him. But then, even then, you get to the end of the first half, the Eagles are 21-7 up. And then Dallas decided that actually defense is part of the game. They should consider playing it. And they held the Eagles scoreless in the second half. They held the Philadelphia Eagles, a team who, whilst not a team that you would say score, you're not worried about the Eagles dropping a 50 on you in any given week, but they'll be consistent. They'll constantly score. Just maybe not ages because, the nice long grindy drives that the Eagles like to produce. Nothing. Well, I don't know. What was your take on this one, Gav? I was so confused. I was baffled. Baffled, I say.
Oh, well, I think it's like we were talking about before the show started, actually. It's not the actual result. If you had said that the Eagles will lose by 3 points on the road against a divisional rival, you might have been a little bit surprised by it, but I don't think you would have been absolutely shocked, and I don't think you'd have the alarm bells ringing. And maybe the alarm bells aren't, going off all over the shop, but there's a few warning lights that are starting to glow in Philly, because it's the manner of that loss. It's the fact that they were 21-0 up. Admittedly, still in the first half, Dallas had obviously chipped away that lead before the halftime. But everything was looking really rosy. AJ Brown's caught a touchdown. He's over 100 yards. In fact, I think he had almost to the second touchdown, which was rightly called back. But yeah, he was having a game. Everything was going right for Philly. And the Cowboys I think the Cowboys did earn their way back into this game. They bottled up Saquon. We talked about Jonathan Taylor. Again, they found the recipe just to shut down Saquon. But the Eagles did also make mistakes in this one.
Yes.
There was a big fumble from Saquon. They also turned the ball over in a punt return. So there are certainly things that they didn't do to help themselves. And I guess that is one of these things on the road, particularly, big crowd in Dallas. You start to hand the momentum over to the other side. And it's not the end of the world. The Eagles still do have a fairly comfortable lead in the division. They're at the 2.5 games ahead of Dallas still. But they've now lost the number one seed to the Rams. And again, it is looking like a really competitive field this year. It's hard to think of a season where you've seen so many competitors all dropping games regularly. And I think, as we'll probably come on to discuss, field advantage is really going to matter this off-season. Could prove to be a costly one for Philadelphia come January.
Yeah, it really could be. And as we are going to talk home field in a wee minute. It's something, again, you hit on something interesting there, though, because when you think about the Eagles hurting themselves, when you look at the box score, and you go, right, okay, it's okay. Did they have a million penalties and the Cowboys with him? Not particularly. They had more penalties than the Cowboys, but yardage-wise, it's not the same, but it's not a million miles apart. The Eagles gave up 96 yards of penalties to the Cowboys 69, so it's not that they weren't getting something back. Turnover battle was a tie. They both had 2 turnovers. So it's not like you could turn around and say that, Harps or the receivers or whoever were turning the ball over loads. Geez, if you're going to try and take that argument with it at all, it's probably the Cowboys are going to feel more aggrieved, because you'd CeeDee Lamb with 3 at least, maybe more, really bad drops, including one in the end zone, should have been a touchdown. But the nature of when the Eagles were giving up penalties, when the Eagles are fumbling the ball, it's drive killers, and it suck the oxygen out of the defense, out of the offense stuff. It just really knocks you right back. And something, right, it's got to be said, okay, because I was slagging Dan off, so I need to give him this as well. Because it was Dan's stat, and he got all happy, and he was so pleased with himself after the win, after he'd no doubt been sat in his living room, terrified, for the majority of that game and all of overtime. Overtime, I talk about that game didn't go overtime. There was 2 games without overtime, that wasn't one of them. Just felt like it. But throughout all that game, and he then came out with his Dak stat attack that Dak is now 7-1 at home to the Eagles, and he is 22-2 at home to NFC East opponents. So, we do always talk about how divisional games, anyone can win and all the rest of it. Not so if Dak is your quarterback and you are going to Dallas. More often than not, he's going to give you a pasting.
Cowboys fans need to talk about divisional games because divisional round games.
What? Yeah, high. It is not the 80s. They're not that relevant. Okay, so last one in the season of discontent. Then I promise, Gav, we're going to talk about happy things. We've got to go to what I am going to say is actually probably the only team in the league that is more discontented than the New York Giants, and it has to be the Minnesota Vikings. JJ squared. We had such hope coming into the season. It is JJ McCarthy's air quotes rookie season. Yes, he's been injured all of his actual rookie season, but I suppose he was kind of sat in the background. He was in the facility. He had chances to do a lot of the stuff there that a college player doesn't get to do. And we have just Justin Jefferson, just one of the best receivers to play the game. And they are utterly, woefully hopeless. This is something where it's, particularly for all my fantasy heads out there, something that you hear said quite a lot when you talk about JJ and you talk about Chase, you talk about Lamb to an extent. Oh, they're quarterback proof. These guys, it doesn't matter who's throwing them the ball, they're still going to be amazing and put up numbers. Evidently, not so, because as soon as we have a JJ McCarthy in and the struggles that he is having on offense, this is a team that can't do anything. And they are getting bullied and beaten up. And yes, okay, it might not be a massive shock to lose to Green Bay in Green Bay. That's, that in and of itself isn't necessarily a headline. Again, it's the manner of it. And it was only 23-6. You say like this or nothing. But it felt bigger. It felt like a bigger loss than that to me.
Yeah, this is one that we were chatting as the game was happening. We'd said, should they be pulling JJ McCarthy out this game? And I suppose the argument at the time was, well, it's only 14 points. You really need to believe you can still turn it around. The film was telling us something different, and I think actually, if you look at the stats, again, they don't give the whole picture. You really do need to film this one, because if you look at that and say JJ McCarthy was pressured 40% of all his dropbacks, sacked 5 times, you're thinking, for God's sake, Vikings, you need to protect your young quarterback. But the fact of the matter is that he's hesitating, he's holding on to the ball, he is contributing to these troubles. And as we've seen, now in concussion protocol, it's actually bad for his health. As well. He was running for his life repeatedly, and I think that there is a question. It's not about being dramatic and saying he's not the guy, but it is maybe the time you do think, do the Vikings need to take a pause here? The division that they're in is stacked and the crowd is just pulling away from them. It's not going to be their year. But if JJ is to be the guy, something's going to have to change.
Well, I think you can safely say the division's done. As much as I said, I'm sticking with my bold prediction territory. And, I'm saying that the Pats are going to be AFC East champions, and I'm going to say without a shadow of a doubt, the Vikings are going to be at the bottom of the NFC North, and there is not a moment of hesitation or doubt in my mind saying that. JJ McCarthy, 2 of the stats that jump out. You see, and you're right, you can't just look at the stats in football. That's not how the game works. They're useful, but they're not everything. 2 of the stats that they do tell a story. JJ McCarthy finished the game with a QBR of 17.9, passer rating of 34.2. There is no way to dress that up. There is no way to make that look pretty. There's no number of excuses that you could use around the O-line or the drops or no. That's just bad play. For me, I agree with you. I think they need to pull him. And it's not oh my God, he's benched and you're binning him. If you think he is him, If you think that this is the guy that is going to see you into the future, he's going to take on the mantle of Kirk O'Chains, Sam Darnold, who played much better. He's going to either one of the pair. If you believe that, there is something wrong right now that needs fixing. And I don't think sending him out there Sunday after Sunday after Sunday to get a beat down is going to help you fix that. I think they need to pull him out. They need to reflect on this as a team and say, right, do we need to work on? There's some great videos doing the rounds at the minute on socials about his mechanics. They are well worth a watch if you haven't seen them yet. And it does do a lot where you're like, no, this is a coaching thing that we need to look at with JJ McCarthy. And it is something that, I don't know, the Vikes are done for the year. We know that they are done and gone. It's a matter of weeks before that it's official. And it really is a question of, are they doing the hard reset in the quarterback position? We all know how hard that is. Or do they need to just protect this guy and say, right, let's try and figure this out together? It's a tough one. I don't know that necessarily either of those answers is the right answer, but the Vikings need to decide one way or the other, and they need to decide. Right, we are going to move to happier places, Gav. We're going to move to happier places and happier climes. Before we do it, I'm just going to take a wee moment to myself. And did you know, Gav, that currently the Cleveland Browns are the only team in the NFL with an undefeated starting quarterback? Only team. Because Shedeur is him. Retire the number 12 jersey. Leading us to glorious, glorious victory. Skewering, destroying, tearing apart all teams, all defences who stand against him, such as the Raiders. But yeah.
And you know what? I think you've earned this.
Victory Monday, Gav.
It's been, well, for you, it's been far too easy, I think, for people to hate Shedeur Sanders. And I know there's the whole circus that's gone along with him and his experience in draft day. At the end of the day, he's just got to go out and prove himself week to week. Okay, his first game when he came in, there were misfires. I don't think it was all on him. I think his receivers actually were a contributing factor in that game. And yes, this week it is the Raiders, but he made positive plays. He got the win, and now you're on to next week and see how it goes. We're talking about JJ McCarthy, someone who is in his second year in the league and still figuring it out. So I think for someone that has only played a game and a half so far, it's his to lose right now.
It's our time to shine. Brown's Super Bowl run. You heard it here first. Do you know, right, wait, taking my Brown glasses off for but a moment, it is worth saying that the Browns rookie class this year is actually, despite the team struggles, performing quite well. Shedeur is doing the Shedeur thing, and we all know that. But you look down the rest of it, you've got Judkins, who looks incredible. You've got Sampson, who, while not Judkins, looks like a useful piece to have in a backfield. Isaiah Bond starting to look good. Harold Fannin Jr. looks like an excellent tight end prospect. You've got Schwessinger, you've got Mason Graham. I don't say it often. I need to give the Browns front office a little bit of credit. That actually does look like, as draft classes go, probably one of the better ones. Right, do we need to talk about teams that are actually relevant to football now?
Yeah, we need to move to the real world.
Right, okay, I'll leave my little world. Right, okay, so it's time to talk about home field hopefuls, folks, because we are hitting that time of the year where, yeah, this is actually starting to shake out, and we are starting to think who is actually going to be looking at playing at home come playoff time. And it was a question that Gav actually posed to us when we were watching the games, is who are the teams that you're looking at you would think, do you know what? Any team benefits from home field advantage. Every team does. Who's going to benefit the most? So I've actually been looking at this and go, we have got, for me, 4 teams who are, before, if you went back to before the start of the year, you would have said they were maybe playoff teams. You would not have said that they'd have been contending for home field advantage. And that is looking at the Broncos, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Bears. All of these teams are either, in the case of, for example, the Patriots, locks, in my opinion, to have home field advantage, or in the case of the rest of them, really contending for it. So yeah, who do you think of those teams? Feel free to throw in a wee wildcard suggestion of your own. It's the teams that could be getting home field advantage that you think, do you know what? This could be the difference between wins and losses.
I think from the teams you mentioned so far, I think the Patriots are one that really stand out in the AFC. I think we all remember right from the inception of the Brady era, and that snow game against the Raiders, that Foxborough, Gillette, that was just a tough place for teams to go play. And that was a big part of New England's success and that the dynasty was the fact that not only did they have the team, but you were frequently playing out there in the cold, in the snow, and weather is a massive factor, particularly for these warmer weather teams that are just not used to traveling to chillier climates. But I think one that you've not mentioned, perhaps not because they're not currently a division leader, is the Seahawks, because they're obviously sitting currently in wildcard position with the Rams a game ahead in the NFC West. And they've still got to host the Rams in a couple of weeks' time. I think it's just before Christmas, that one. That's a team that's absolutely rolling. And if they can get that win and just turn the tide, just have that picture of, CenturyLink Field now, if we're giving our sponsors the shout outs. That's a place that's just absolutely rocking. Again, in the cold, you think about some of these big games in the sort of Pete Carroll, Russ Sierra, Legion of Boom, where Seattle just powered to Super Bowls by that home crowd. And I think that's one that really jumps out to me. And I think if you look at it from the Rams' perspective as well, if Seattle can get home field advantage, you're taking them away from the comfort of their dome and SoFi. So I think that's one that I think would be really big in the NFC.
For me, it's got. Like, I was looking at this and I was kind of thinking away about it, and I do agree. All of the Foxborough stuff with the Patriots, it's huge, and we've seen through shudders years of Brady's dominance. We talk about KC as the baddies, we forget who the real baddies are. And yeah, it's huge. And yeah, we could talk about Chicago and Soldier Field and all this. Yeah, we get it. For me, but there's only one winner here. It's Denver. Mile High Stadium is. It's sorry to do the sponsors there, but Empower Field. Absolutely not. It's Mile High. I know. Yes. I'm not. We're not sponsored by. We're not sponsored by them yet. Wink, wink. It would be alarming how small the check would need to be to sponsor us. But when you look at that, so you've got the altitude. It is one of the things people say it flippantly. It's a factor. That's not your home stadium. Playing in that is a big deal. And one of the bits that I actually found out, did you know that over the last 40 years, so we ain't talking just yesterday, over the last 40 years, the Broncos have got one of the highest home winning percentages in the NFL. It's around about the 63% mark. So this is something, it's not just a guess, it's not just that, oh well, it's home, so home's home. It's statistically backed by science. Sports plus science equals guaranteed betting performance. It doesn't, people. So, yeah, for me, it's got to be the Broncos. We all know that I've been championing the Broncos through the year. Every time I look at their record, I'm surprised to see how positive it is. It's a couple of the games. The Broncos are a team that somehow are 9-2, despite some of the, and they've had some really gutsy performances, but some of them have been more than questionable. But yeah, they're a team that I think they land with home field, and they, unlike the Patriots, they are a long way from being guaranteed to have home field advantage. They've got the Chargers sitting behind them in 7 wins. They've got the Chiefs sitting just tucked in there at 6 wins. Anything could happen in the AFC West. So yeah, no, I'm going to say if they get away with it, I think if the Denver can be playing their playoff game at home, it could be a big difference maker for them. Not convinced they will be, but I do think it'd be a big difference maker. Right, we're moving on to the last segment of the show, Gav. It's sadly getting to that time again. Time flies when you're having fun. It's time to do our very brief look ahead to the joy that is week 13. And this one is great, folks, because it's Thanksgiving week. And we have many things to be thankful for. I need to say, principally among them, an incredible Thanksgiving slate. For a wee look behind the scenes, everybody, me and Gav, we have a wee meeting before we come on. We have a wee gab, and we were sat chatting away about, what are you thinking about next week's slate of games? And there was a genuine point. These are all good. These are all great games. So it actually took us more than a hot minute to come up with our 2 games of the week, or the games that we're looking ahead at and thinking, do you know what? This is going to be a goodie. Gav, you do the honours first, sir. What are you looking at for your game of Thanksgiving week?
Well, I mean, you've already touched on Thanksgiving, and I think we've just got to say, first of all, that is an epic slate of games. Packers,
Mm-hmm.
Lions. We always thought that was going to be high stakes in the NFC North. What we didn't think is it's going to be who's going to keep pace with the Bears in the race to the NFC North. But that is going to be a big, big game. And then you've got Chiefs Cowboys. That's one where you've got two teams who really cannot afford to lose this one. Suddenly, the Cowboys are filled with hope and the idea that they could make the postseason. But if the Chiefs win Dallas on Thursday night, that's the bubble burst again. So huge game for both sides in terms of who's going to keep the momentum going. But to look at our condensed Sunday slate for this weekend, I'm going to pick out Texans Colts because two teams that we've just talked about in this week's show. We thought this was a division that was done and dusted. It's far from that. The Colts do have a tough run in. They've got to play the Texans and the Jags twice. They've also got the Seahawks and the 49ers to come. But the Texans, as we've said, are a team with momentum. And this is one that I guess we're going to see just if this Texans team are for real, can they claw it back? Can Daniel Jones and John Taylor and company figure out what went wrong in Kansas City? That's going to be a great game to watch in the 6 p.m. slate.
It's going to be interesting because as we say, it is such an incredible slate. It's hard to pick, but that's going to be a good one because at the end of the day, I was so big, not last week, week before when we were on, talking about how the Bills were going to be coming back. They're going to need to play angry to actually achieve something. But they are coming up against arguably the best run defense in the league, arguably one of the best defenses in the league. And I'm saying that as a Browns fan, but we are talking about an absolutely so what they are currently fourth in the league against the run. And we've spoken already about how, I hate to say it, Colts fans, if you take away JT, the rest of that offense, it doesn't look like it's it. One thing that might well help them is that from the early reports, and it is Monday, so there is a lot of reports still to come out here. EJ Stroud looks like he's probably not going to be back again. That kid is still in concussion protocol. And I don't know, this is one we see concussion protocol go up and down and around about in the league. There's some players that are in it for 55 minutes, and there's other players that it's a bit of a struggle. And this is something where, I don't know, we'll wait and see. So we might see that the Texans need to put that on their defense, and they are playing against what has been, up to this point, one of the most electric offenses in the NFL. Now, for me, my big one, I was looking ahead at this, and when you talk about a team that I don't have a lot of faith in, they have appeared on Fraud Watch before, but I am getting to a point where I got to be fair, and I got to look at results, and I got to give respect to its due. The Bears are 8-3. We can't take that away from them. Oh, and they happen to be playing the 8-3 Philadelphia Eagles. This is going to be an absolute cracker. We are in a position where both of these teams are playing to, well, for the Bears, they are playing to keep the lead in that NFC North. They have got sole ownership of the number one spot in the NFC North. They have got, dare I say it, they have got eyes on the number one seed. They're only a game off the pace, so they need to make a point here. And if the Bears are only one game off the pace for the number one seed, that means the Eagles are too. So these are two teams who, you talk about clash of the Giants, and I'm talking about the Bears. What's going on, Gav? What's going on? I'm saying nice things about Chicago, but it's going to be a cracker. We've got two teams where, do you know what? I suppose I was going to ask what you're thinking about this. For me, Chicago fans, say if you want me to take your team seriously, this is where you make me take your team seriously. You are playing against a wounded animal in the Philadelphia Eagles. That loss to Dallas hurt. So they are going to be coming out with a point to make. So yeah, you want to show us, Bears, that you are actually a team that deserves to be sitting at the top of your division, that deserves to be in playoff conversations beyond a token first round appearance, that deserves to be in a conversation about taking the one seed. This is where you've got to do it.
I think you've nailed that point, Brian.
Idea.
I think you're right. This is, these are two teams, I think, with different questions being asked. I think, as we said earlier, Eagles, yes, that was a bad way to lose the Cowboys. But having said that, they are still 8-3. They're still ahead in the division. They're still very much in contention for even the one seed in the NFC. They can get the ship righted with one win against the Bears and get themselves back on track. Flip side for the Bears, no one expected them to be here, but they have everything to prove to everybody. And they do have two divisional rivals who are breathing down their necks. And I guess that's by virtue of the Lions playing the Packers. One of them will absolutely be come Friday night. So yeah, this is going to be just a fascinating one to see where these two teams are. Are the Bears really going to be a contender, or are the champions going to show that they have a bit of toughness in them? Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. What a week of games to be thankful for, Gav. Right, well, everybody, with that, it brings the end of the show nearer and nearer, and it's here. So, we hope you've enjoyed listening and watching to our look back at the last week in the NFL and a very short look at the week that is to come. Now, we are, as always, going to be here every single Tuesday on episodes to go back through the weekend's action and to have that wee sneaky peek at what's coming. So make sure that you like, you subscribe, you follow us anywhere you get podcasts. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, anywhere you need us, we are there. And yeah, it has been a fab one. And let's look forward to things to be thankful for in another week of scintillating NFL action. I have been Brian, he has been Gav, and thank you very much, folks, and we will see you in the next one.